Ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers around the globe, a very warm welcome to another of our episodes. Let me introduce myself first, and I have a bit of a unique introduction which is unprecedented and quite different from the others that I've previously used. Let me introduce myself first for our new viewers. I am Barrister Faisal Mahmood Honabil. I am a barrister of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn. I am an internationally accredited civil and commercial mediator for ADR ODR International, and I am the Associate Counsel for CIADR and the General Secretary of YCIADR. I'm the legal counsel of a group of companies here in Bangladesh. Before going into the details as to today's shows and the associated platforms that there is, I feel obligated to say this. Unfortunately, we live in an era of division, prejudice, and hatred where we are trying in these desperate and difficult times through these initiatives of ours, through these initiatives that I am associated with at any capacity, be it host or directing these shows. We try to spread love, unity, support, and continuous professional development or any personal development of any sort. And this particular venture, this particular show to be precise, and this particular platform, which I'm going to describe in just a little, has been for the same sort of ideology altogether. This show today is presented by Legal Voice Foundation and Lincoln's Inn Members Association of Bangladesh in association with University of West England Bristol, of which I'm a proud alumni, Excel Law News 24. This is our second episode of our live show on the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn Experience. Today, we went into a different route. Today, we decided to talk about the unprecedented and the harrowing, and I would say a very difficult experience that student members faced during this particular academic session due to the pandemic. And this has been unprecedented and unique in the sense that certainly measures have been taken and situations had to be faced which has never been faced by anywhere and anyone in the world. When we managed to save ourselves so far, or we attained the loss of our loved ones being together in our respective residence, these people who has attended their BPTC in this session had to attend these uh, while, while having their loved ones here in the country at least 8,500 miles away. Today, we are going to talk about their unprecedented experience as Lincoln's Inn student members and BPTC student during this pandemic, 1,000 miles away from home, alone, or with a bit of friends in this foreign country. I personally find it very important to say a few more things, which is our these live events. Previously, in our first episode, we talked about the experience of our senior and the junior members regarding their Lincoln's Inn experiences, and I personally feel that it is quite important to share the experience of a lawyer in their early life as well, because this talks about practicality, this talks about real life, relatable experiences rather than acquired knowledge, which is, of course, certainly very important. But as I've always felt that the difficulties that this profession entails, if the sharing these experiences can enlighten or at least make someone aware as to what to expect, that is something to be cheered for. And that is why we have chosen current BBTC student. I will be introducing them just in a while. I also personally feel that sharing these experiences, and we as a platform, we feel that sharing our experiences are very important because, for example, my first day at London was a very difficult experience with the uncertainty as to whether my accommodation will give me access because it was midnight and my flight was 6 hours delay. And there were similar difficult situations that I had to face during my first sessions in the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn. And furthermore, often there has been a consideration or there has been a difficulty for the young lawyers or aspiring lawyers or law students to raise their voice or a place to talk to. These shows that these events that we are bringing on, these are about the thoughts and ideologies that I and we personally represent. And instead of hatred, division, and prejudice, it's about unity, diversity, mutual support, and development. As I've said, this has been in association with Legal Voice Foundation. Legal Voice is the voice of the people. This is an organization dedicated to the professional and leadership skill development of people through raising public awareness to make informed citizen. Legal Voice Foundation works for multiple objectives, such as ensuring the fundamental principle of state policy and fundamental rights of the citizens of Bangladesh guaranteed in certain parts of the Constitution of Bangladesh. Lincoln's Inn Members Association of Bangladesh, on the other hand, is an entirely non-political, all-inclusive organization promoting harmony, unity, brotherhood amongst the members of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn, with a view to accelerating the standard, honor, and rigor that is expected of a barrister or a member of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn in the personal life and in the professional capacity as well. For our new members, it is also important for our new viewers, it is also important to briefly introduce Lincoln's Inn. This Lincoln's Inn, or joining one of the four inns before commencing the bar professional training course, is a prerequisite, and it is one of the first steps that you can take in your career at the bar. A total of 12 sessions is required to be attended at the end to be called as a barrister of the England and Wales after the successful completion of the education and vocational component of the designated providers. Historically, apart from the designated providers helping with the academic component, the inns have played a key role in the training of its student members. For many, the focus will be obtaining qualifying sessions prior to being called to the bar, but additionally, the inn organizes various activities throughout the year designed to build experience and improve understanding of life at the bar. The IN's qualifying sessions falls into multiple categories, which includes ethics, standards, values, advocacy skills, legal knowledge, equity, diversity, inclusion, preparation for pupillage, career development, and well-being. My apologies for a rather detailed introduction, which we think was necessary under the circumstances to ensure that we are aware, in line, and supporting each other entirely in these difficult times that is yet to pass. Now, before further ado, it will be a pleasure for me to introduce our guest for today. We have we have Miss Sadia Sharif Baishaki. She is a BPTC student from University of West England, Bristol, who have completed her LLB from University of London International Program. She is a student member of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn, and she is a teacher of the English medium of the St. Joseph School, Dhaka, Bangladesh. Secondly, we have Mr. Zubair Mohammad Zahid Hussain, a current BTC student of the City University London. He has completed his LLB from University of London International Program as well, and he is a student member of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn as well. Dear guests, thank you very much for joining with us.
Thank
Would
you
you
so
like,
much.
right, please introduce yourself slightly. And Ms. Sadia, if I may kindly request you to use your earphones, please. Mr. Zubair, introduce yourself meanwhile.
Thank you, Mr. Annabelle, for inviting me in this session. And thank you, Legal Voice Foundation and Lincoln's Inn Members Association of Bangladesh for organizing this event. I'm Zubair. I'm currently doing my BPTC in City University of London, and I'm the student member of Lincoln's Inn.
Right, thank you very much. If we may go back to Ms. Sadia. Thank you for putting your earphones.
Yeah, thank you. So, hi, I'm Sadia Sharif Boshaki, and I'm currently doing BPTC from UW Bristol, and I'm a student member of Lincoln's Inn. Also, I am a teacher, obviously, from St. Joseph International School.
Thank you very much for the introduction. As I've previously mentioned, that during in these difficult circumstances, certainly BPTC in itself and the Lincoln's Inn members' experience and everything else altogether, the journey to be a barrister is difficult in itself, and unfortunately, to add to that, both of you had to face the pandemic, and certainly there is a number of unprecedented, unique, and difficult and interesting experiences. I'm pretty sure that both of you had to face throughout your tenure in the UK in this academic session. I'd like to thank both of you again for joining with us from 8,000 miles away. This is truly a blessing of the modern technology and the circumstances that we're being able to connect people from so far around. I'll be going into specific discussions and specific questions as to your experiences and the differences that you have faced in the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn due to this pandemic, uh, compared to what you have heard of it. But before that, if I may kindly ask you to give a brief description as to your experience of BPTC as a whole during this pandemic, your anticipation, anxiousness, difficulties faced, and the changes as a whole, the teaching methods, accommodation, examination process, etc. If I may start with Ms. Sadia this time.
Well, thank you. To begin with, BPTC, we all knew that it's going to be different. It's going to be a completely different experience. It's nothing like our honors degree or how we did that. We'll be far away from family, and that was something we all planned. For me specifically, I was, before I got on the flight, I told myself, what can actually go wrong? And the worst that came to my mind was, okay, I might, God forbid, but I might fail one or two subjects, or maybe a lot more than that. What could be worse? That maybe, or maybe I might fall sick. And that's a big issue when you're not near your family, when they're not around. Maybe I'll have problems with having poor quality food because, come on, I cannot cook as well as my mom does. Maybe I have to learn things from scratch. So yeah, alarm will be my only way and hope to get to the classes. I have to probably press my own suits this time. But no chance in any way that I thought we'd be hit by a pandemic. That was not in my catastrophic list that I, mentally listed. And when it all happened, I still remember it was around 23rd March in the evening when we got to know that Mr. Boris Johnson actually told us about the whole lockdown thing. And we were all in the library. It was on March, at the end of March. We all know what's coming in April. That would be decentralized. And for us, that was the day we got our briefs for criminal advocacy. So we know in 7 days, we have our criminal advocacy. So we were all there trying to do our own thing. The whole library was there to spend another normal night, which would be to be, sleepless and to do their own research on their own work. And all of a sudden, we only see it's only the BPTC students, and we see there's nobody else. And Boris says, about lockdown, and it all stopped. Everything stopped. Everyone stopped studying. Everyone was like, is it even safe to be in the library anymore? Should we go back to our dorm because there'll be more people? And what should we do now? What's next? Should we study? Or should we just sit or go to sleep? Or should we just, pack our bags and go back to Bangladesh? Or is Bangladesh even safe? So it was a whole new deal. Suddenly, your whole perspective about life changes. Suddenly, it's not about BPTC only. Suddenly, it's not about just passing the modules anymore. Suddenly, it's about life. For me, my whole perspective about life changed in this lockdown. I started seeing things differently. But yes, thankfully, as I've already said, I'm from UWE Bristol. So my faculty, my cohort have been amazing. They have been doing an amazing job because for me, I know that personally, the many emails that I have sent to my tutors and my BPTC providers, whoever it was, I never got a delayed response. It was always there. They were always there to answer all the queries. Probably it was new, not just for us students, but for everyone. But the support that we all got was amazing. So I guess that's one of the reasons we're still here and talking and having this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are gonna thank you. Thank you so much. Certainly, thank you for this articulate description, which is brief, but certainly with a number of interesting insights. We're gonna go into the details. If we may move to Mr. Zubair,
Thank
your
you.
experience, your overall experiences of the BPTC. Yes, please.
For me, BPTC has been a course which had a lot of pressure. I was very excited about it, but things changed gradually as we were going with the course. Teachers were amazing. They had the answers for everything. They answered every email in details, and the staffs were amazing. We made wonderful friends and interacted with not only students but teachers who are advocates in the court, who are barristers, and even in when we went to the Lincoln's Inn for our sessions, we met justices of Supreme Court, the ESQ, the QCs, and it was a whole lot of experience. And about the pandemic, uh, I had my civil advocacy examination, which is an internal examination governed by City University, was on the 17th of March. And I was well prepared for my exam, and the exam was cancelled on the very day. And I had to sit for the exam in the next month. Things were things changed very fast. I had to prepare myself for the examination again. I was well prepared for my centralized exams. I had to study day and night. Like, I had to go for my classes at 9 a.m. in the morning and do my classes till 4 p.m., 3 days a week. They had to prepare for the classes. Like, in City University, the difference is that we don't have to do MCQ in our SGs, like the small group sessions, but we have to do SAQs for every centralized exams, like the civil examination, like the crimlet and ethics as well. So we had to do our SAQs, so I had to prepare from the white book, the BPTs, the BCP, and all other APA books. So it was very difficult for us to manage everything. I had to cook myself, and I had to go with it, and then I had to go out. I had to cut onions. That was the most difficult part for me. Do my laundry. So it was very difficult for me.
Yeah,
But
we're
still,
gonna
and
we're gonna go to these
that's true.
specific questions. Absolutely. You've raised a few important points. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll go into the differences that came into your lives respectively due to this pandemic or the BPTC teaching methods and the facilities in a while. But I'd like to go back to the Lincoln's Inn related question right now. So I'm pretty sure that when you actually went to do the course in September, October, November, or even before Christmas, or even certainly a few weeks after Christmas, things were all right and things were as you expected it to be with the normal facilities that we have seen, the normal procedures, the normal booking procedures, and the normal things that we have always been seeing from Lincoln's Inn, starting from the introductory session up to other. I would probably think, or I would probably presume, Sunday lunches for Sadia and for Mrs. Zubair, a stroll at the park at night after finishing classes. Just remember to put on your suits. Now that's the benefit. That's the benefit you get when you're in the city that close to Lincoln's Inn. Yes, certainly, certainly so. But what I'm going to ask you, what I'm going to ask you both is just I would want a detailed answer to this, which is the differences or the changing trends of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn, which is the main theme of our session today. The changing trends of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn due to this pandemic, the usage of the online methods, having online sessions, what have they decided in regards to the local sessions? This would be a particular question for Sadia in a while, but mainly how things have changed, how trends have been changed, how they have done things differently, how much they have used the internet. I'd like to start off with Mr. Zubair this time.
Thank you, Mr. Annabelle. Actually, I study in City University, so the Inns of Court and especially Lincoln's Inn is just a walkway from my university. It's just 4 minutes walk from my university. So things were very different at first. Like, I had to attend, if I had to attend session, I finished my classes, then I went to see Lincoln's Inn to attend the sessions. Things were very interactive. I had to go dine in Domus nights or in lecture sessions. I'd listen to lectures carefully and later go to the dine-in sessions, dine in and interact with people or personalities like the judges or the ESQs or the QCs, QC like Mr. Sidhu, QC like Mr. Zubair, who used to give us advice about our pupillage, about how can we enter the court or how can we do our pupillage. They wanted to know what cases we wanted to do, what which field of law we wanted to practice in, and things were very interactive. They used to have amazing food, and now things have been changed drastically. Things are very different now. we do it online. Like last on the 8th of July, I had a Lincoln's in session which was online, so I had to prepare for it. It was an criminal advocacy session, so there was two lawyers who interacted with me, and I had to give the answers to them, that how a criminal procedure occurs in the court, how they do it, and they addressed it in a Zoom meeting. There were other people around me who had to give answers as well. We developed our ideas about how things work in actual court, and how is the arson case dealt in which court, and they cleared us, made clear about everything. And I think we didn't have to travel to Lincoln's Inn. We had to stay back in our home. We didn't need to get suited up. We need to get in a formal attire, but we didn't need to get suited up, or we didn't have the opportunity to have dinner. Although the sessions were free, that was one of the best things. But uh, the online sessions were good as well. But the interactive sessions that we used to have with QC, other students, justices, have changed drastically. Thank you.
Right. Uh, Moving on to Miss Sadia with the same question for you on this, please.
For me, we all already have some idea of Lincoln's Inn, maybe from senior brothers or sisters Facebook page, or from just somebody who'll be talking to you about how Lincoln's Inn actually is. So yeah, all that anticipation about, there'll be lectures, there'll be people, informals, you'll get to meet a lot of people, because the whole idea, as to me, it seemed like to communicate and grow the communication. That's what you do in Lincoln's Inn. You talk to people, you meet new people, you learn how it is to actually hold yourself out as a barrister. That's the whole process that you see. It's Zubair talked about food. Definitely there's that. Can't say no to good food and that feel. But before pandemic, I'd like to start with the things that I missed once pandemic hit. That's the fact that when I actually saw Lincoln's Inn, apart from all the lectures, I once got a good look at it from outside. It looked like a part of castle, and then once you go in, especially the dining hall, that was what I thought was like, OMG, it's Hogwarts. So so that feeling that I got in my introductory session, that I got on all the other sessions that I had before, up until pandemic hit us, that was something that I started missing once things turned to be completely online based. Zubair talked about the criminal advocacy sessions. He got the online one. Well, I had the chance to get the local sessions that they held. I got one in UW Bristol. That was also criminal advocacy, but completely different from what actually Zubair just said. His one involved with two people, and they interacted with that, probably had a case brief, definitely. For us, we had 6 people, and we all had to give our presentation in front of everyone, and
But
definitely there was a judge.
So it was in person, not online.
No, that was not online. So I'm talking about before the online
Pandemic.
thing started.
Before the pandemic. All right, please go on.
Before the pandemic. So that was different. And obviously, every time you go to Lincoln's Inn, or even if it's local, there's food involved. And the food is quite great. It's not what I cook at home. It's not what I will, order for takeaways or something, because when you're a BPTC student, that's the most probably can do, or else. Honorable Pai, you talked about Sunday lunches. That really don't happen much. Even though I'm a foodie, I thought I would be visiting restaurants then and there, now and all the time, but no, that did not happen for me, sadly. It was mostly takeaways and in our kitchen with a bunch of BPTC hungry people together. Yeah, I was always looking forward to Lincoln's Inn and how it was. Even the lectures, they were not as not your regular lectures that you see. It's completely different from that. It's definitely, there are topics, and it's module based, and they talk about things, but it's quite interesting to be. I guess it's all the ambience and the aura that Lincoln's Inn
Sadia,
evokes. It's different.
Miss Sadia, yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. There is a slight issue as to your internet, probably. There is a slight echo and everything. Once we are going to move, well, please finish your answer, but after that, you'll have to take care of that a little. Please finish your answer.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Is it still echoing?
No, it's better now. Thank you. It's better now. Please go on.
Okay. So all that, as I was saying, maybe it's just the complete feel of Lincoln's Inn that you get. Even if there are lectures, it is nothing as your regular lectures that you see in your university. And yeah, so once the pandemic hit, to wrap up, what I missed most was the food. The plus point, the only plus point was that we don't have to make that journey from Bristol to London. That was something. And obviously, the after pandemic, the online classes were all free, but it was just like a regular class. Different, but still, there was no thrill of that dining. There was no thrill of, who will be sitting next to me. Will it be a judge or a QC or somebody? I have no idea, because once I've heard some lawyer to the president was there from a friend, and he got the chance to sit next to him. He was quite surprised. So yeah, that surprise element was gone, and it was all virtual. So different.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are going to move to Mr. Zubair right now. But Ms. Sadia, I'd like to request you to see whether anything can be done with the internet so that we can have you not interrupted in your next answer. Mr. Zubair, if you kindly tell us that the changes that Lincoln's Inn brought, to be honest, apart from the online sessions that you have just talked about, first tell me, these online sessions that you have had or that they have offered since the pandemic or since the lockdown started in the UK, has that covered all the categories of the sessions that they usually offer? For example, the ethics advocacy workshops, Domus nights, other dinners, and everything. Did they offer all of those online?
Actually, I don't think so, because about the Domus night, like it's a session where you sit and dine in with a justice or a ESQ or a
Yeah,
QC. They
yeah,
cannot accommodate in virtually, but what they did is they did mainly case analysis, lecture session, and ethics sessions online, other than and advocacy sessions as well. Other than those
right,
sessions which were actually to be taken physically.
right, right. My next question is to Ms. Sadia. Now, Lincoln's Inn has always been extremely popular around the world, let alone the subcontinent. Now, my question to you is that after this pandemic, these sessions that they were offering online, has that make it more accessible or more difficult to attain to?
Definitely, if you look at it from a technical point of view, yeah, it has been made more accessible to the students or to its members. But
Yeah,
then again, there's this issue of getting adapted to something which is new. So some people found it quite hectic. Some people, I basically mean my own friends, because that's how I got that knowledge, that when it comes to something new, some people just find it so hard to adapt at first. Like, what will I do next? How is it going to happen? Why cannot we just have it normally? Will it actually work? Internet itself has become an issue. For example, what's happening with me at this point, I'm extremely sorry for that. But internet and the glitches on it has been an issue too. But on a practical hand, yes, it's definitely more accessible. I can sit in my own home, just no more time, no extra time to be given. I'm not doing a serious 5-6 hours journey to go there, and then I don't have to come back late at night. I'm sitting in my home, I'm being comfortable and still being able to do my qualifying sessions. So yeah, that has made it more accessible for people globally. Students especially, who had to leave UK and then go back to their own countries, could also access it. This was one of the greatest things, because whenever Lincoln's Inn planned to give us any qualified sessions online, they really did take care of the factor that there will be people from Asia, there will be people from UK, there will be people from all over the world, basically. So timing was also one of the criteria, and I think we actually are doing it quite well.
Right. My next question would be for Zubair. I'm going to go back to you with another question. Oh, so to Zubair, my question is that as far as the so as far as residential weekend is concerned, did they manage to hold any residential weekend, or all of those had to be cancelled for this pandemic? Okay, let me go to generally speaking, because yeah, yeah, go for it. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Actually, about residential weekends, like they
yeah,
cannot accommodate it right now because of the coronavirus. Like
yeah,
people want to attend it because they
yeah.
might be infected. And residential weekends used to take place. I think it was until February when the last residential weekend was there. So people attended it, but now it's not available due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, I'd like to focus on this particular point because unfortunately, I mean, this is certainly unfortunate for the students of this session, considering the fact that residential weekend have always been a very exciting and a very important and an exquisite part of the Lincoln's Inn experience. Whereas you get to meet amazing people. Apart from that, the location, the activities there, and everything altogether have always been an invaluable experience for the ones who have attended it. Unfortunately, I personally couldn't due to a clash with my exam schedule. Unfortunately, there's a funny story. I really don't know how the clash actually happened, but unfortunately, I had my resolution of dispute out of court redoc examination that day. Now, the day they confirmed me that, let's just not go into the details as to the schedule mishap or anything, but yeah, unfortunately, this has to be one of the key things that everyone's missing out. I mean, yes, absolutely. Considering the devastation that life is taking, considering this pandemic, in comparison to that, this might not be nothing. But we have to understand that these students who are there, and I'm certainly going to go and talk about their difficulties and the turmoil that they have faced as a foreign student in a foreign land, worrying about their family back home. Certainly, we're going to talk about that. But before that, one small question to Ms. Sadia. How are Lincolns in taking care of the local sessions? I mean, we are expected to have out of London providers are expected to hold at least 2 to 3 local sessions for the benefit of their students, so that they don't have to travel. How are those being dealt with?
I don't think there's no such specific local sessions for separate cities anymore. Uh, as far as I have realized from all the bookings that I have done online so far, it's basically it's divided into two parts now. The ones that are from city, it's from London, they do have one booking session, and the rest of us have another. So it's
Yeah.
not local anymore, but we have that to diversion as well.
Right, because that so this marks a significant change as well, because historically all the out of London providers had the authority to hold 2 or more sessions, be it an advocacy debate or anything else whatsoever, through their Lincoln's Inn representative of Lincoln's Inn representative, and if that is not there anymore, this is certainly interesting. Now, we have definitely talked about Lincoln's Inn a lot, and we will talk about that. We'll go back to that as to your future plans in regards to your anticipated call to the bar and everything at the end of the show, which I always keep for a main event type questions. Now, let me get back to a rather a rather difficult question. I mean, I wanted this to be interactive and I wanted it to be fun, exciting, but there's a bit of a reality involved in it, and we have to consider that as well. And I'd like to remind our guests that we are having great views and we are having comments from our dear viewers. Thank you, Mr. Rafael, Barrister Rafael, if I may correct myself. Thank you so much for watching. Miss Rasha, thank you so much for your good wishes. Uh, yeah, so going back to the question, I'm gonna acknowledge the comments at the end of the session again. One last we have from Mr. Sheikh Ashibur Rahman Asif. Thank you very much. Uh, my next question is that how difficult was it to survive? And I'd like to start off with Mr. Zubair on a rotation basis as well. So, how difficult was it for you to survive in this pandemic? I'd like specific description as to your thoughts, your mental condition back then. How was it to have your family here? and how difficult was it to further fine tune your life, and basically how was it to have your life, I would say, restricted to this dorm room that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Anabel. Actually, since the lockdown started after Boris announced it, I had to lock myself up in the room. I'm a very outgoing person. I usually go and eat in restaurants quite every day, so it was very difficult for me. I had to start. I had to start that. I had to learn cooking, and I started cooking since then. I did different experiments with cooking, and then literally I went to a bit of depression as I couldn't meet my friends. I just had to video call them or chat with my family back in Bangladesh. Situation in Bangladesh was also getting worse. Even my grandfather died recently on June, and my father also got sick. He was admitted in the hospital. Things were pretty not good for me, and being here, I have been limiting myself from meeting people. I do wear mask when I go out. I do wear gloves. And about studies, it was very difficult for me to concentrate in such a situation. I was it was not possible for me to study day and night. I limited myself to uh, doing my works only 2 to 3 hours a day, and the rest of the day I used to cook or eat. And I was very bored with life. I used to go out every once a week, and to get my grocery. And back in there, I have a Tesco, which is a grocery store next to my dorm. There was a huge line, and only the limited people who could enter, up to 20 people. uh, After getting the grocery, I had to clean myself up and enter the dorm. They limited the allowance of guests, so it was restricted for us to bring guests, friends, to have a party in our house. So things were pretty difficult for me.
Mrs. Zahid, you've just mentioned that you've lost your grandfather in
Yeah,
June,
yeah.
and you had to stay back in England, and you couldn't attend the funerals.
Go back. There was no flights.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is precisely why we have chosen to actually have these live events, because I personally, and we certainly have had a number of events, number of webinars where it has been knowledge based, and we have had the graceful presence of a number of distinguished, acclaimed, established guests. I personally wanted to, and we as these platforms, we wanted to have these experience based live events due to this particular reason. I certainly not on a morbid note, but on a practical note, I have personally lost two of my relatives and one of my uncle as well during these pandemic. But at least I was fortunate enough to be able to pay my last respects to them. Now, if we don't acknowledge, or we don't really give these people who are not being able to even pay their last respect to their relatives, and who are constantly worrying as to the well-being of their dear ones back home in Bangladesh, while at a time pursuing the perhaps the most difficult course of their life, and arguably one of the most difficult course in the world, in a land, as I've previously mentioned, in a land 8,000 miles away from home. If that experience is not enlightening or helping enough, I don't know what will be, because I personally think that if I were to go to the bar in the next September under these circumstances, these experiences that these two guests are gracefully sharing with us would have been invaluable for me, because I have been a barrister and I've had my call in July 2017. But these differences, circumstances that both of these guests and all the other applicants in this particular session have been feeling, experiencing, tolerating, dealing with, this is totally unprecedented entirely. Moving on to Miss Sadia as to the same question. Sorry, I had to give my input on this considering the reality that actually came. Sorry, it was really not planned. Please go ahead.
Yes, but I agree to with Zubair. Yes, we did not plan a lot of things, and we really don't have a hand on a lot of things that happens in our life. Uh, Thankfully, I did not have to go through that, but the fear that grasps you once you realize that something is happening and nobody can help it, uh, that literally affected me. For us, it was not just social distancing, it was also self isolation because we are not living with our family. We are living in one tiny room. We cook our own food. We have friends, but they also have their own tiny rooms, and is nobody actually realized or had the plan that maybe one day will come when we'll have to just confine ourselves to that tiny room. Maybe going over to another friend's place or even to the library, as I've said, to have a group study session would be something to be scared of. Uh, Thankfully, I did not lose a family member, but like Subar has experienced, I have heard, and I cannot fathom how these people have actually still survived, and yes, yet as well surviving. Hats off to you, Zubair, and all the people out there who's really doing it. Uh, I still cannot actually fathom the fact what I would have done, and that's something I think nobody will really understand as long as they experience the situation, the helplessness when you know that a family member out there in Bangladesh, which, as you have said, that 8,000 miles or even more away from us, when they're suffering. Or the same goes for the parents as well. They are also concerned. For me, I started talking to my parents for even like 5 or 6 hours a day just to make my mom feel better, just to ensure her that, Mom, I'm not going anywhere, I'm still there. But who will make her understand that I still have to go out for groceries? And I have to stand in the line, and it will take hours, and I may not find all the food that I want, and I might be missing our DC curries. But that was reality, and when that hits you, it at times it hits you bad. So, Bar, you're not the only one who went into depression. I can say that I won't call mine to be depression, but come on, if it makes you drop tears, then yes, you're sad and you do miss home and you really want things to be all right. Um, I guess this is also the point where I'd like to say that I really, really acknowledge that our teachers have had worked tirelessly to actually give us that support. I had my personal tutor mail us all personally to ask if we are okay or not, and that little gesture really means a lot because we are so far away from our family, and things might get emotional at times, and we are all we call ourselves adults, but hey, come on, we are adults, but this is new. We are adults, but we have been with our parents all the time. So it was not only about cutting onions and crying, it was real, the real deal. So it was different. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the part of the session that I was looking forward to. Certainly, it wasn't really planned, and I haven't really planned my reaction accordingly as well. As you have previously seen, that in live sessions, things often go out of hand, and you just have to adopt. Now, certainly considering these circumstances, and personally, I've had my friends, apart from these amazing guests with us today, I've had my friends who are in the UK currently right now, having their dear ones, including their father, in the hospital, even in ICU, and they're not being able to come back, or they're having to stay back considering this. As we believe that magic comes with a price, and certainly BPTC, or the elusive title, elusive would probably be a bad word. I would see the much aspired, desired, acclaimed title of being a British barrister is certainly no less than a magic. And magic certainly comes with a price. And these people out there are certainly paying, and they're paying it heavily, way heavier than any of their predecessors did. Now, on a slightly lighter note, let us go back to food. Now, let us go back to that. Now, let me go back to Mr. Zubair. How good of a cook were you? And the fact that you temporarily had your luxury of buying food from outside stopped, how did you cope up to it? Was it only one time noodles?
No, actually, I can cook. I learned cooking at home back at Bangladesh, but things were very different here because back in Bangladesh I didn't chop onions, but here I had to. So I didn't limit myself only to noodles. I cooked biryani and other stuff as well, and it was quite good for me. I learned a lot, experimented a lot, made I even made cakes, and things were very different now. Now I'm a good cook, and I can say that apart from being a barrister, I also developed myself from being a person who was lazy to a person who's super active, who can cook, do his own laundry, and make the room clean as well.
So, on a scale of a Michelin star chef to one of the much acclaimed Mughlai hotels outside that we have in Dhaka, how much would you rate yourself?
8 or 7, not much.
It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. I think if you have to overestimate yourself in certain places, I mean, this is probably one of those harmless things.
Actually, I'm overestimating. I think you have to have my food, which I cook.
Oh yes. Oh, all right. All right. I'm certainly looking forward to that once you're back safe and sound. After achieving certainly everything that you want to achieve there. Moving on to Miss Sadia. Same question to you, and my additional question to you would be that UE Bristol, it has been a quite peaceful city, and how quiet it has been after the pandemic. And the previous question as to cooking.
Well, I'll answer your second question first because I can sum it up into words. You have been
Yeah.
UW Bristol has been a ghost city. I think I have even seen ghosts because I can promise you there were no people, so I don't know where the shadows came from. So because there were no people, I was certain about it. I was walking alone. If there were shadows, it has to be, a ghost. Oh yeah, but there's this very interesting thing that happened to me once. So that was before pandemic, but it was around the time of Christmas. So once again, there were no people, and in my whole flat, it was just my room. I was the only occupier in the whole flat. So in my flat, we had 8 roommates. I was the only one that time, and I did not sleep the whole night. I was studying or doing something, the whole night. Obviously, I did not study the whole night. So I was watching series or something, but I really did not sleep the whole night. What happened was around 6 a.m. in the morning, I finally thought maybe I'm too tired enough. Maybe I should just sleep now. So, so yeah, I fell asleep, and between my bed and the study space that we have, there's a little space. It's a long, narrow space where I can actually walk, and I could hear. I was turned the other way and sleeping. What woke me up was that I could hear footsteps right around that area. So someone was walking, going forward and backward. And that sound woke me up. But I was so tired because I did not sleep. So I was mentally thinking, forget it. It could be anyone. Let the ghost just do its, mind its own business. Let it walk on my room, do whatever it is like. And maybe I was hallucinating because of the lack of sleep. Maybe there was something, but trust me on this. The stories that I have heard, I did not believe at first, but after that morning,
Oh
yes.
yes.
So that morning, yeah, maybe if there could be ghosts, even if there were no people. So
Yeah,
Ghost and Bristol deserves the name.
yeah, ladies and gentlemen, UW Bristol. I have to say this has been my university, and it has been our sponsor for today as well. But the stories associated with ghosts and everything, perhaps predominantly it has been due to the anxiousness and the result of anxiety of the foreign students and everything. But certainly, we wish to cover this particular point in any of our lighter themed shows.
Yeah,
Uh,
we should.
a
Next
little,
one was
yeah, a little bit about your cooking. After that, we'll have to go to the big question about call to the bar. Yeah, please.
so my cooking. I was always an experimental cook back at home, but I never realized that you have to cut onions for it. You have to peel them first too. And somebody always did that for me. I would only just add the stuff. It's like, you are making your you put your pizza toppings on your own. It's kind of like that. So I would tell some people or someone to, manage the ingredients. So my onions would be diced already, and the peppers would be there, cut nicely. The cheese would be shredded, and I would make something, and voila, comes out a lasagna out of the oven and all that. But when you're cooking on your own, you see there's so much more to it.
Right.
And
If I may ask you one question, although I'm at the luxury to take a few names, but I'm not gonna take it. But I'm gonna ask you a question. You're gonna have to understand who I wanted to mimic. So, your lasagna, as you mentioned, was it raw?
no, no.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a fantastic session so far, and we are 10 minutes to go, and we are quite well on time. We'd like to go back to a rather more serious and a very important main event question of ours, and I'll ask for both of your opinion on this. Based on the unprecedented and uncertain situation that there is, and what are the Lincoln's Inn thoughts about call to the bar, and what are your plans, considering the uncertainty as to visa and the overall circumstances altogether? If I may start with Mr. Zubair.
Thank you, Mr. Honorable. Actually, it was said from Lincoln's Inn or mailed from Lincoln's Inn that our call to the bar is amid to take place online, and we had to show our interest there, and we did. But most certainly, apart from the Lincoln's Inn, the Inns of Court consist of other three inns of court, consist of other three inns, namely the Middle Temple, the Inner Temple, and the Gray's Inn. So, as far as I'm concerned, uh, any of the inn have mailed the students that they're going to uh, arrange the call to the bar physically, and most probably the Lincoln's Inn is also going to make it physically, and it would be very difficult for students who are not doing LLM BPTC but only BPTC, and who has their visas until 30th of August 2020. So I already contacted the Home Office. I'm waiting for the reply. I've already emailed the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, that I need her help in my visa extension, and uh, like it would be very disruptive if I didn't don't get a visa extension. If I have to go back, it would put
Right.
my life into risk. And additionally, what I want to say that uh, I don't know if they would allow me to come back to UK once I've traveled back to Bangladesh.
Okay, yeah, we have touched some very important grounds there. While we are not gonna go into the technical details and the circumstantial details and the reasoning behind it, considering the wide ambit of those reasons, which is beyond the scope of the show today, I'd like to go back to Ms. Sadia with the same questions, and if you'd like to add your thoughts as to these as well, and I'll go back to Mr. Zubair for your thoughts in this regard as well, because certainly all these efforts of yours for the last 10 months or probably for the next 2 months as well had been for the famous or the much desired call to the bar. Miss Sadia.
So this is a bit of a gray area for me, or I think for everyone maybe, because what to do next? One of the greatest issue has been to extend your visa, and obviously the circumstantial parts of it is uh, uh, quite, it's very consequential and circumstantial. So you have to also add to the fact that if you go back, you may not be able to come back soon. But then there's this thing: you do have your call to the bar offer up till for 5 years, as far as I know. So anybody who really has to go back to Bangladesh probably has that chance. But then there's again another thing called call in absentia. If you're really willing to do that, I'm pretty sure, like me personally, I really don't want to do that. I want to stay back and get my call to the bar here and not do it virtually. So for me, it's a bit of a gray area. I'm still thinking about it. And this is one issue that we are yet about to experience. So this is a topic which I think I cannot completely say what I really want or what I really should do. So these two things are being, separated for now. I really want to stay here, but there are consequences for that too. But I really also want to go back to Bangladesh. But then the point is, am I really willing to take the call in absentia, or what happens if I want to come back for the call to the bar?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to explain these few terms that have just been referred in my conclusion. But as we are close to our time bar, I'd like to ask our guests, I'd like to thank them both again, and I'd like to ask them one last question each, which is one thing that you'd like to advise this year's applicants who are expecting to go to the UK. Just one specific thing each. Mr. Zubair.
I would like to advise them that, like, if you come to UK, don't go out, don't party, stay at home and study, and you will complete your bar at one go.
Right. Miss Sadia.
Be very, very flexible. Expect the unexpected, and things will never go as you plan. You can make a huge list of, to do and not to do, but this is something you can never completely plan. Obviously, listen to Zubair too. Don't party too hard, but don't just put yourself in self-isolation even when there is no lockdown anymore. Make sure you do get yourself the time to breathe a bit. But yeah, don't just make it your whole life ambition. Don't make it everything. It's not your everything. It's still bar, and obviously you can do it. So many people are doing it.
Well, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard unprecedented, interesting, different stories of these two guests. Certainly, they speak for all the applicants and their difficulties that they have had to face. We have heard about the changing trends as far as Lincoln's Inn is concerned, as far as the specific bar providers are concerned, and as well as the changes that required due to the pandemic in their respective lives and how they have passed it. As I have previously, as I've mentioned while starting the show, that we as a platform, and I personally, with the shows and with the events that I have been associated with as a host or as a mediator, and this platform in itself believes on unity, harmony, and mutual respect and support. Our basic idea or our basic reasoning behind hosting a show as such, which is unprecedented in itself, considering the fact that we have went back to the basic, because I've always believed that going back to basic is very important, and I've always had a scarcity of places to talk about to talk about my bar related experiences, and I certainly didn't want to put it in a Facebook status. I've had many queries from many people as to how my bar related experiences were, and I've always answered those, but there's only a handful of things you can say in an interpersonal altercation for a few minutes. So we basically wanted a place where these experiences, these very valuable and important experiences, will be shared, considering the fact that we still have a good number of people expecting to go to UK for the BPTC this year, and certainly we have their parents who are very anxious as well. And these little things can certainly make your life a lot easier, because I personally think that if I would know how the difference between a mega bus and a national express, my first journey would have been different. And one last thing is that the last question that we dealt with, call to the bar is equivalent to convocation of any course. Call to the bar is the famous ceremony where you're called as a barrister of England and Wales, pronounced by the inn that you're a member of. In our case, which will be the Honourable Society of Lincoln's Inn. Now, this is the main day. This is the showtime. This is the day where, for which all the difficulties and all these exorbitant display of fortitude that you have just been narrated by your guest have been happening. And unfortunately, if that the looming uncertainties as to that we have just heard is definitely difficult to comprehend, difficult to fathom, and difficult to digest. We certainly hope that the visa related issues, which is beyond the scope of this live event today, is being solved, and the Herculean effort that our guests today and all the BPTC applicants of this session is giving, they get the reward for that. At least the reward that they deserve is to be able to attend their call to the bar, provided they satisfied all the conditions, which I certainly hope that they will do. On a last note, as I've said, at the beginning that we live in an unfortunate era of division, hatred, and jealousy. We are trying to promote through these events, we are trying to promote harmony, unity, mutual support, respect, rapport, personal and professional development, and sharing important experience. Thank you very much for listening to us throughout the time. Thank you very much, all our sponsors, Excel, University of West England, Bristol, our Legal Voice Foundation, and Lincoln's and Members Association for selecting me as a host. And thank you very much, our guests for today. We wish both of you, and we want to wish all the applicants this time being that we wish you good health and the eradication of all these uncertainties that you have just mentioned. Stay well. We pray for your family back home, and we wish for your successful, glorious return back in Bangladesh as barristers.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.